Ever wondered what secrets hide in history's forgotten corners? Welcome to Mystic Library X, where we decode ancient civilizations, uncover hidden libraries, and revive lost knowledge. From Egypt's enigmatic pyramids to the library of Alexandria's vanished treasures, join us in bringing buried stories back to life. Subscribe now to unlock the past, because the greatest mysteries lie beyond plain sight. Egypt stands as one of the most prosperous civilizations in human history. For an extraordinarily long period, it ascended to a pinnacle of power so profound that it has fueled conspiracy theories suggesting only extraterrestrial intervention could explain a society so advanced beyond its contemporaries. Yet, why did this great civilization fail to reach even greater heights, leaving us today with only a shadow of its former glory? If you've ever wondered what propelled Egypt to become one of humanity's earliest and most thriving empires, the answer, surprisingly, lies in its climate. Today, we envision Egypt as a vast desert surrounding Cairo, but during the formative era of the ancient Egyptian kingdom, this land was unrecognizable. It was once blanketed by lush vegetation, fostering a rich ecosystem teeming with wildlife and migratory birds, making it an ideal haven for nomadic tribes. By around 1500 BCE, Egypt had become a melting pot of diverse cultures. Its people mastered animal domestication, crafted tools and pottery, and established rudimentary governance systems. A key principle to their success, as the Egyptians might remind us, was to always lead the way, to pioneer boldly into uncharted realms of progress. The Badarian tribe is recognized as the first to settle and dominate this region, later succeeded by the Nakada. By this time, they had mastered the crafting of weapons from silica stone, also known as volcanic glass, transforming a sparse cluster of small farms into a bustling hub. Another critical factor was their geographical advantage. The Nakada controlled the entire Nile River valley. Moreover, most regional trade routes passed through their territory. They swiftly established ties with Nubia, a powerful kingdom along the Nile in present-day northern Sudan and southern Egypt, as well as Mesopotamia, trading crafts across vast regions. They even developed one of the earliest writing systems, which later evolved into hieroglyphics. Thus, this civilization began its first critical leap toward becoming an empire. Much of early Egyptian history remains obscure due to scarce written records. However, Manetho, an ancient Egyptian historian and priest during the Ptolemaic dynasty, 305 to 30 BCE, the final ruling era of ancient Egypt under Greek control, asserted that the official dynastic history began with King Menes. At the time, Egypt was divided into two kingdoms, but Menes gradually unified them. Around 3150 BCE, Egyptian civilization began to take shape, soon surpassing all contemporary imaginations of what a society could achieve. The first kings established their capital in Lower Egypt, founding the city of Memphis. The perfect combination of abundant labor resources and fertile agricultural land enabled these rulers to amass wealth rapidly. Ironically, what they spared no expense to invest in, pouring vast fortunes into, was the construction of massive mausoleums to commemorate their deceased leaders. Continuing this tradition, subsequent kings readily commissioned elaborate architectural projects for themselves. This was the era when the king began to be revered as a deity, and human ingenuity in architecture and construction materials surpassed the standards of their time. Though these ancient tombs did not resemble the pyramids that still stand today, their influence on later structures, which would become Egypt's greatest architectural marvels, is unmistakable. Within just 500 years, Egypt had transformed entirely. The age of the Pharaohs is believed to have begun around 2686 BCE, a period recognized as the ancient Egypt most people are familiar with. During this period, Egypt experienced rapid growth as its vast agricultural region supplied abundant food not only for its own people but also for immigrants from across Africa and Asia. The government system was tightly consolidated, with a focus on taxation and infrastructure investment, including advanced irrigation systems that boosted harvest yields. The ruling class lived in extreme wealth, while peasants faced hardship, often forced to labor on monumental national construction projects under orders from their superiors. This was the era when pharaohs reached the pinnacle of their power. Despite holding the highest status in Egypt, each ruler felt pressured to outshine their predecessors. Driving relentless efforts to expand the empire, it was also during this time that Egypt began creating monuments still standing today. The Great Pyramid of Giza and the Sphinx are iconic examples known to nearly everyone. Yet, the first crack signaling a turbulent era for Egypt began to emerge. Pharaohs poured vast resources into self-glorifying ceremonies, eventually depleting their coffers. The allocation of expansive lands, consuming immense wealth and resources to construct countless royal temples, began destabilizing the national economy. Kings faced opposition from regional governors, and the nation gradually decentralized. The kingdom suffered severe droughts, devastating crops and triggering the decline of the entire state, culminating in the collapse of the central government. This was followed by the first intermediate period of ancient Egypt, lasting approximately 125 years. While provincial rulers initially hoped the collapse of the central government would grant them opportunities for advancement, many soon realized that without a central authority, there would be no one to guide or sustain their regions. This led to widespread food shortages. Those who adapted successfully helped their regions thrive. With robust local economies no longer under royal oversight, many governors, already wielding absolute power in their domains, grew increasingly ambitious to expand their influence. Eventually, civil war erupted. The absence of a central state apparatus left Egypt. For nearly a century, dominated by two equally powerful kingdoms, the Theban dynasty in Upper Egypt's south and Heracleopolis in Lower Egypt's north. Over time, Theban forces under the Intef clan grew stronger. By 2055 BCE, King Mentuhotep II led Theban troops deep into Heracleopolitan territory, ultimately reunifying Egypt. A new era, the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, began. Initially, progress seemed promising. The new rulers, starting with Mentuhotep II, expanded the kingdom, mitigated natural disasters, and produced monumental achievements in art, literature, and architecture. Beyond agricultural development, they conquered Nubian territories and seized control of its quarries and gold mines. To external powers, Egypt became a formidable force. Fearing invasions, they constructed one of history's earliest large-scale security infrastructures, a massive fortress to protect Egypt's eastern frontier. While early Egyptian art focused on glorifying rulers, this period saw works emphasizing introspection and emotional depth. Additionally, they began venerating more complex deities. Osiris, the god of the afterlife, emerged as the most significant deity. Depicted with green skin, a pharaonic beard, and a mummified form, he wore the white Ateb crown adorned with ostrich feathers and held a crook and flail, symbols of pharaonic authority. The growing demand for construction forced Egypt to recruit additional laborers and settlers from foreign regions, a decision that later contributed to the downfall of the Middle Kingdom. Not long after, Egypt's second golden age was ravaged by famine and drought. Massive Nile floods inundated the land, damaging ongoing construction projects and straining the economy. Pharaoh Amenemhat III, the ruler at the time, proved utterly passive in the face of the kingdom's dire situation. Meanwhile, the Canaanite settlers he had previously employed as laborers suddenly became a threat. This group, known as the Hyksos, from the Arabic Ix, meaning shepherd kings, settled in the eastern Nile Delta around 1650 BCE. In the Egyptian context, they were referred to as Asiatics. Within a short span, they seized control of the Nile Delta, signaling the inevitability of Egypt's fragmentation. Ancient Egypt achieved astonishing feats, but tragically, greatness often fades. Though the kingdom was later ruled by many renowned pharaohs, most were not native Egyptians. From this point onward, the ancient Egyptian empire became increasingly unstable and isolated from global interactions. During the Second Intermediate Period, the Hyksos, a major migrant tribe, exploited the chaos to establish dominance in the delta, becoming the first foreign group to rule Egypt. By approximately 1785 BCE, they chose Avaris, a northeastern Nile Delta city, as Egypt's new capital. The previous ruler, Pharaoh Amenemhat IV, was forced to flee to Hyksos-controlled territory after losing all authority. However, the Hyksos showed little interest in outright regime change. Egyptian kings were allowed to retain their titles as nominal heads of state, as the Hyksos preferred using the highest-ranking nobles as puppets rather than abolishing the monarchy. As long as the pharaoh complied with Hyksos' demands, the throne endured, albeit as a shadow of its former self. Yet, anyone visiting Egypt during this period was deceived into believing Egyptians still held power, as the Hyksos secretly pulled the strings. Wars soon erupted again. The Egyptians fielded a formidable army eager to defeat the Hyksos, but their strength lay in numbers, not advanced weaponry. Recognizing this weakness, the Hyksos swiftly upgraded their arsenal with composite bows and horse-drawn chariots. Meanwhile, Thebes' Egyptian regime quietly consolidated power, preparing to reclaim lost territories. This culminated in a brutal 30-year civil war. Simultaneously, the Nubian kingdom to the south eyed Egypt and seized Thebes. Ultimately, the conflict ended in a stalemate. Thebes barely held its ground, while Nubia was decisively defeated by the Hyksos. However, circumstances soon shifted dramatically. Ahmose I, Thebes' new ruler, prioritized military restructuring. Through the campaigns of Kamose, his predecessor, he expelled the Hyksos and reclaimed lost lands. But his ambitions stretched further. He sought to dominate the Near East and most surrounding territories, ushering in the New Kingdom era, a 500-year golden age and Egypt's final period of greatness. During this time, Egypt became history's most magnificent empire, and rulers adopted the title Pharaoh. This era also witnessed one of Egypt's most iconic rulers, Hatshepsut, a female pharaoh who restored much of the damage inflicted by the Hyksos. She led extensive trade expeditions, securing vast resources like copper and timber. With these materials, she commissioned grand temples, cementing her legacy as one of Egypt's greatest leaders. Despite its expanded territory and abundant resources, the new kingdom's collapse stemmed from deep-rooted internal flaws. Why did the new kingdom fall? This remains a complex question, but one certainty is that Pharaoh Akhenaten's reign failed to prevent it. A famously eccentric and ruthless ruler, Akhenaten abandoned Egypt's traditional polytheism, declaring the sun god Aten as the sole supreme deity. Followers of other gods faced persecution, while grand projects to honor Aten were launched. He even relocated the capital to a new city, later named Amarna, after himself. Yet, his radical reforms died with him. His successor, Tutankhamun, one of Egypt's most renowned pharaohs, quickly reversed Akhenaten's policies. Restoring traditional worship, by 1279 BCE, Egypt's revival began under Ramesses II, traditionally identified as the pharaoh of the Exodus. Ambitious and resource-rich, he erected colossal statues and obelisks. As the saying goes, you can't teach the wealthy how to spend money. He waged major campaigns against neighboring regions and fought the Hittites, culminating in history's first recorded peace treaty. Life during this era was prosperous and stable, evidenced by the countless surviving statues and artifacts of Ramesses II. Yet, Egypt ironically became a victim of its own success. As the world's wealthiest nation, it attracted envy from neighboring powers, the Berbers of western Libya. Living in relative poverty, eyed Egypt's prosperity with resentment. In Canaan, Egypt faced the rising Assyrian Empire at its borders. Meanwhile, Aegean pirates began raiding coastal regions. Though Egypt's military initially repelled these threats, greater dangers lurked beneath the surface. Within the structures built by Ramesses II, priests wielded immense power, enough to enrich themselves and rival local governors in influence. This was the same internal decay that had hastened Egypt's earlier collapse, and now history repeated itself, with even graver consequences. Caught between two rival empires and fierce seafaring raiders, Egypt faced battles on multiple fronts. By 1069 BCE, it had lost most of its Near Eastern territories, marking the start of the Third Intermediate Period. During this era, Egypt unraveled both internally and externally. High priests in Thebes, tasked with overseeing religious rituals and worship, amassed unchecked authority, while Libyans controlled the south. 3 centuries later, the Kushite kingdom of Kush invaded, seizing Thebes and the Delta. Though the pyramids became iconic symbols of Egypt, it was the Kushites, not the earlier pharaohs, who built most of them. By this time, Egypt's global influence had drastically declined. Its remaining territories fell to foreign empires, while allies like Canaan, Hamath, and Aram Damascus were absorbed by Assyria. By 600 BCE, Assyrians expelled the Kushites, looted Thebes' temples, and handed control to local vassals rather than governing directly. In 525 BCE, the Persian Empire conquered Egypt, marking the definitive end of its ancient dynasty. Yet, Egypt remained a land of wealth and treasures, never losing its allure. The Persian dynasty lasted several centuries until 332 BCE, when a legendary world leader emerged. By age 30, he had forged one of history's largest empires, stretching from Greece to northwest India. This empire, encompassing Asia Minor, Syria, Phoenicia, Gaza, Egypt, Bactria, and Mesopotamia, extended to Punjab in modern-day India, earning him recognition as one of history's greatest military commanders. Known as Alexander the Great, he revered ancient Egyptian culture, unlike the Assyrians or Persians, and revived many traditions. Establishing Alexandria as a port city, he transformed it into a thriving hub of commerce and education. His successors later built the famed Lighthouse of Alexandria, securing Egypt's claim to 2 of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. This era marked Egypt's golden age as a colony, blending Greek and Egyptian cultures uniquely. However, Alexander's successors failed to sustain this legacy, leading to internal religious reforms and widespread local uprisings. Returning to Egypt's booming trade, the country exported vast amounts of grain, catching the attention of its powerful neighbor, the Roman Empire, which sprawled beyond Italy. Yet Rome's growing dependence on Egyptian grain shifted its strategy from trade to annexation. Rome succeeded in conquering Egypt, with Octavian, later Augustus Caesar, becoming the first emperor to control such a vast territory. This made him the wealthiest man in the world, ruling what was once Earth's most prosperous nation. Rome governed Egypt more effectively than any prior empire, becoming the world's dominant power. Conflicts between Christianity and local religions persisted until 391 CE, when Emperor Theodosius declared Christianity Egypt's state religion, closing temples. Over time, ancient Egyptian traditions faded, and hieroglyphs were forgotten. No empire lasts forever. Rome collapsed in the 4th century, and Egypt fell under the Eastern Roman, Byzantine, Empire, centered in Constantinople, modern Istanbul, Turkey. Amid post-Roman power struggles, Egypt briefly returned to Persian control before Byzantine rule in the 600s. By 639 CE, the Rashidun Islamic army defeated the Byzantines, establishing Arab-Muslim rule in Egypt. The country largely persists to this day. Egypt survives, and its cultural relics endure, but modern Egypt is merely the culmination of nearly 20 preceding empires. Notably, Arabic became the dominant language, a consequence of prolonged foreign domination. Egypt once experienced two great kingdoms, both emerging after intermediate periods of collapse, only to rise stronger. Why did this cycle not repeat? The most plausible explanation is that after the third intermediate period, erroneously cited as 1969 BCE, Egypt's internal strength had dwindled irreversibly. The constant rise and fall of empires with divergent governance systems also played a role. Particularly, centuries of Roman oppression erased much of Egypt's pre-existing heritage and weakened national identity. Even today, Egypt retains mysteries that continue to baffle even the most astute historians. Thank you for joining Mystic Library X on this journey. If you found this video valuable, don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe to help us continue uncovering history's hidden gems. Turn on notifications to stay updated, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Stay curious, stay amazed.